Everything has to be cleaned in the gold room. I can't do that. I just can't. Why have a third planet if you can't keep it clean?
The Yukon, a land where fortunes are carved from frozen ground, where the roar of heavy machinery drowns out the silence of the wilderness. Here, every shovelful of dirt could hide a fortune, or nothing at all. For the miners who work this land, each day is a gamble, and the stakes are measured in gold. This season, Parker Schnabel is chasing the most ambitious goal of his life, 10,000 ounces. It's a number that could rewrite the record books and cement his place as one of the greatest miners of his generation. But gold doesn't come easy, and neither does glory. As the pressure builds, cracks begin to show. Machines strain, tempers flare, and the crew that has powered Parker's success is pushed to the brink. In the middle of it all stands one man, the steady anchor of the gold room, now facing a breaking point that could send shockwaves through the entire operation. If he falls, Parker's dream might go with him. The season hangs in the balance and the clock is running out. Will they strike gold, or will the Yukon swallow another dream whole? Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe for more Gold Rush stories, where we dig deeper into the drama, the danger, and the discoveries that keep you on the edge of your seat. Everything has to be clean in the golden ring. Those were the words of Chris Doumit, Parker Schnabel's Gold Room veteran. The man who has spent years turning raw, dirt-caked pay into millions of shimmering dollars was now saying he couldn't do it. His voice cracked as he repeated it. I just can't. It was a moment that sent shockwaves through the mine site. For years, Chris had been the dependable anchor, the steady hands in a season full of chaos. But now, the backbone of Parker's crew was reaching his breaking point. And with the gold room at the very core of the operation, the stakes had never been higher. It was the gold rush bombshell no one saw coming. For 15 relentless seasons, Parker had relied on Chris to be the last line of defense between raw pay dirt and pure gold. The gold room was his battlefield, every ounce washed, sorted, cleaned, and made ready for Parker's weekly weigh-in. But this season was different. The ground was producing richer pay than ever before, and that meant more cleanup, more pressure, more perfection demanded. The golden ring, the final stage of purification, left no room for error. One speck of dirt could ruin a week's haul, and with gold prices soaring to record highs, every mistake meant thousands lost. Parker's voice was sharp, urgent. Chris, we need that cleanup done by tomorrow morning. But Chris's reply was blunt, almost cold. Then you'd better find someone else. It wasn't just exhaustion speaking. This was a man who had been pushed to the edge by the crushing demands of the season. The machines ran day and night. The deadlines loomed like storm clouds. Fuel bills and labor costs bled the budget dry. Every delay costing Parker thousands. And through it all, Chris was the one under the microscope, knowing that if he slipped, the entire operation could falter. Chris had seen everything over the years: storms, breakdowns, equipment failures, and backbreaking shifts that would cripple most men. But the pressure this season was something else entirely. It was the kind that crept in quietly, eating away from the inside until there was nothing left to give. Now, with Parker's ambitious goals hanging in the balance, one question remained. If Chris walked away, could Parker still hit his season target? Or would the gold room, the heart of the entire operation, grind to a halt? Because when the gold stops flowing, everything else stops with it. 10,000 ounces. That's Parker Schnabel's number, his goal. his obsession. For most miners, it's a dream. For Parker, it's a line drawn in stone. This season, nothing less will do. The plan, at least on paper, looks simple. Run 3 wash plants at once. Big Red, Rock Sluice, and Bob's plant. 3 giants, chewing through mountains of dirt, day and night. More dirt means more gold. That's the math. That's the gamble. But in the Yukon, paper plans don't dig pay dirt. Reality is colder, harsher. And this reality is chaos. To hit his target, Parker knows every machine has to run flawlessly, every crew member has to hold their ground, and every hour has to count. But 3 plants mean triple the maintenance, triple the breakdowns, triple the fuel bills. The crew is stretched thin, pulled in every direction, racing between fires they can barely put out. The mine site becomes a battlefield, each plant a front line. Big Red is the veteran workhorse, steady but aging. Rock Sluice is the wild card, capable of brilliance but prone to tantrums. And Bob's plant, the rookie, promising yet riddled with teething problems that can turn hope into frustration in minutes. Parker studies his production charts with the intensity of a general before a war. If all 3 plants run, he mutters, we can hit 10,000. If one goes down, we're dead in the water. His words aren't a warning. They're a countdown. Every breakdown eats into his season. Every delay shaves ounces off the final tally. The gold is there, buried in the dirt, waiting to be won. But the question that hangs over the camp, like a Yukon fog, is whether Parker's crew can survive the grind long enough to claim it. The season is still young, but the stakes are only climbing. The machinery groans under constant strain, and the men are pushed to their limits. The goal is tantalizingly clear, yet feels just out of reach. One misstep, one critical failure, and the dream of 10,000 ounces will vanish like gold dust in the wind. Somewhere out there, in the shadows of the claim, trouble is waiting. Whether Parker's 3-plant gamble will make him a legend or break him before the first frost is a question no one on site dares to answer. Not yet. The gold room is quiet, except for the hum of machines and the steady, rhythmic clink of metal on metal. To most people, it's just a shed full of equipment and hoses. To Chris Doumit, it's the beating heart of Parker Schnabel's entire operation. Here, every speck of gold the crew has worked for passes through his hands. And for years, those hands have been steady, methodical, almost surgical in their precision. His job isn't just to clean the gold, it's to protect it. Every sluice box, every bowl, every ridge in the mats is part of a system designed to capture gold so fine it's barely visible to the human eye. The tiniest fleck, if lost, could mean hundreds of dollars gone. Chris knows this better than anyone. It's a process built on discipline and perfection. The sluice boxes catch the heavy material as water and dirt rush through. The gold settles into grooves and ridges, hidden in the black sand. From there, Chris works it down, slowly, deliberately, feeding it through specialized bowls, watching as lighter debris washes away, leaving behind the glint that makes it all worthwhile. It's repetitive, it's demanding, and it's unforgiving. But for Chris, there's always been a sense of pride in it. That pride has carried him through long days, frozen mornings, and endless nights under the Yukon sky. This season, though, everything has changed. Parker's ambitious push for record-breaking gold has doubled, maybe tripled, the workload in the gold room. More pay dirt running through 3 massive wash plants means more cleanups, more sluice maintenance, and less time between each run. What was once a grueling schedule has tipped into something almost impossible. The gold room is no longer just busy, it's relentless. Chris barely has time to finish one cleanup before another plant calls for his attention. The days blur together. The noise never stops, and the pressure to keep up is crushing. You can see it in him now, in the stoop of his shoulders, the way his hands tremble ever so slightly when he reaches for a tool. At 59 years old, Chris has been through decades of hard work, but this kind of strain is different. It's not just physical, it's in his head, weighing him down, every hour, every shift. He's quieter than usual, less of the easygoing humor the crew has come to count on. His face, usually calm and unshaken, is lined deeper this year. The spark in his eyes has dimmed just enough for the others to notice. One night, as the rest of the camp winds down, Parker walks into the gold room to find Chris still bent over the bowls. "You're still at it?" he asks, a trace of concern under his usual brisk tone. Chris doesn't look up. "Still got more to do," he says. There's a pause, just long enough for Parker to realize the weight of it. "You all right?" Parker asks. Chris lets out a dry laugh, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "It's just, everything has to be clean in the golden ring. I just can't." Parker stares at him for a moment, the hum of the machines filling the silence. Outside, the Yukon wind rattles the walls, carrying with it the faint clang of distant machinery. In that instant, it's clear. Something's got to give, and if Chris Doumit can't keep the gold flowing, the entire season could grind to a halt. But before Parker can say another word, the radio crackles to life with a frantic voice from one of the plants. Something's gone wrong. The gold room falls silent. Chris straightens slowly, eyes narrowing. Whatever just happened out there could change everything. The Yukon morning was still, the kind of stillness that comes just before everything changes. Inside the gold room, the air was heavy with the smell of wet gravel and diesel fumes. Chris Doumit stood over the cleanup table, water swirling through the bowls, his eyes fixed on the golden flecks gathering at the bottom. He had been running like this for weeks. No breaks, no breathing room, no end in sight. Finally, he set down his pan, leaned against the workbench, and let out the words he'd been holding. "I can handle 2 plants, he said quietly, but firmly. Not 3. Parker, standing just inside the doorway, didn't move. The machines outside were roaring, chewing through pay dirt at a record pace. Slowing down wasn't an option, not with the 10,000-ounce goal looming over every decision. "We can't pull operators from the machines," Parker shot back, his voice tight, almost defensive. "Every bucket counts. If the plants aren't fed, we're done." The 2 men locked eyes. Chris's face was tired, lined deeper than usual, but there was a sharpness there, a warning Parker couldn't ignore. "Then get me help in here," Chris said, "or I'm telling you right now, you're going to start losing gold." That's when Chris spoke the name, Tatiana Costa. She was one of Parker's best on the ground, fast, efficient, and unshakable in the chaos of earth-moving operations. Pulling her from the dig sites would be like pulling an engine out of a running truck. Parker knew it, and so did Chris. The suggestion hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. "If she's in here with me, we can keep up. If not, well, you know how this ends." Word spread through camp fast. Around the coffee table and fuel pumps, the crew muttered their opinions. Some agreed Chris needed the help. Others warned that losing Tatiana on the front lines would choke production at the plants. Every yard of pay dirt she didn't move was gold left in the ground. The tension crept into every conversation, every radio call. It wasn't just a staffing change, it was a shift in the delicate balance of the entire operation. In the end, Parker gave the nod, but it was reluctant, almost grudging. "Fine," he said, glancing toward the gold room. "Tatiana helps you, but we don't slow down out there, not for a second." Chris didn't celebrate. He knew it wasn't a real solution. This was a patch on a leaking dam, and both men understood it. Outside, the engines roared back to life, the plants rattled and shook, and the gold room filled again with the endless sound of rushing water. Somewhere deep down, Parker could feel it. This wasn't the end of the problem. It was the beginning of something bigger, something neither of them might be able to stop once it started. Before the gold, before the rush, before the long days in the Yukon's unforgiving cold, Chris Doumit's world was made of wood, nails, and the scent of fresh-cut lumber. He was a carpenter by trade, a man who could take a pile of raw boards and turn them into something solid, something that would stand the test of time. He had no plans to become a miner. Gold wasn't on his radar. That changed by accident, in the way life sometimes twists without warning. One summer, he took a job building cabins for Todd Hoffman's crew. It was meant to be temporary. Build, get paid, move on. But gold country has a way of pulling people in. The mining camps were loud, chaotic, and demanding. Machines broke. Weather turned. Crews scrambled to fix problems before they cost ounces. Chris found himself stepping in where he could, tightening bolts, patching hoses, improvising solutions with whatever was at hand. The work came naturally to him. His carpenter's precision translated into a knack for mechanics, and his calm under pressure made him the guy people looked to when everything else was falling apart. By the time the season ended, Chris wasn't just the man who built cabins. He had become part of the heartbeat of the mine. When Parker Schnabel came calling in season 4, Chris didn't need much convincing. Parker needed someone who could keep the gold room running, someone who could treat each cleanup like it was the most important job on site. Chris stepped into the role and never looked back. The gold room became his domain, his responsibility, his battlefield. It was here that he earned the crew's trust, not with loud promises or bravado, but with results. Day after day, he delivered clean, high-recovery gold. No shortcuts, no mistakes. Over the years, Chris became more than just a crew member. He was the anchor, the one who steadied the ship when tempers flared or deadlines loomed. His recovery rates were among the best in the industry, a fact that didn't just impress Parker, it kept the entire operation in the black. Whenever the season's totals were read out, there was a little extra weight in those numbers, the weight of Chris's work, precision, and quiet dedication. Now, standing in the same gold room he had made his own, Chris felt the pressure building like never before. Years of trust and reputation were on the line, and the work that once fueled him now threatened to break him. But walking away wasn't in his nature, not yet. Not while there was still gold to save. Parker Schnabel's story begins long before he was the man commanding million-dollar mining operations in the Yukon. He was born into the dust and roar of heavy equipment, the grandson of John Schnabel, a legend in Alaskan gold mining. The family's big nugget mine wasn't just a business, it was a legacy, a piece of the Schnabel name carved into the earth. As a boy, Parker spent his days shadowing his grandfather, learning not just how to mine, but how to think like a miner, where to dig, when to push, and when to hold back. At just 16, Parker's life took a turn most teenagers couldn't imagine. While his friends were focused on school dances and football games, he took the reins of Big Nugget Mine. The weight of payroll, production targets, and operational decisions landed squarely on his shoulders. College was an option, but not one he took. The classroom was replaced with the raw, unpredictable school of mining, and Parker decided he was going to bet everything on gold. It was a gamble that would define his life. His early seasons on Gold Rush were a mix of trial by fire and stunning breakthroughs. Viewers watched as he battled breakdowns, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of going broke. And yet time after time, he came out ahead. His determination was magnetic. That drive carried over to Parker's Trail, where he took on mining challenges around the globe, pushing himself into jungles, deserts, and dangerous territories in search of gold and the stories behind it. Each step expanded his skill set and his reputation. By his mid-20s, Parker had built a multi-million-dollar mining empire. He wasn't just a reality TV star, he was a serious operator, a man whose calculated risks and relentless work ethic turned pay dirt into fortune. Every new season meant scaling up, bigger crews, more machines, higher production goals. The stakes kept rising, and so did Parker's ambition. But that kind of focus comes at a cost. Relationships strained under the weight of long seasons and longer hours. Friends faded into the background as mining consumed almost every waking moment. Today, Parker stands at the head of one of the most successful placer mining operations in the world, but the journey has left its mark. Every ounce of gold comes with a story, and every success carries the shadow of what had to be sacrificed to get there. Now, with the 10,000-ounce goal looming over this season, Parker's past victories serve as both fuel and a reminder that one wrong move could bring it all crashing down. From the moment Parker Schnabel took the reins, the numbers told a story of relentless growth. In the early years, breaking 1,000 ounces in a season was considered a solid victory. It meant the gamble had paid off, that the operation could keep moving forward. But Parker never measured himself by solid or good enough. Each year, the targets climbed. Each season was a chance to prove that the last one had only been a stepping stone. By the time season 14 came to a close, the numbers were staggering. Over 7,300 ounces of gold, worth millions, pulled from the ground. It was a record-breaking haul, the kind that cements reputations and reshapes the competitive landscape. But those ounces didn't just happen by luck. They were the result of strategy layered on top of strategy, reinvestment on top of reinvestment. Every major payout went back into the operation. Bigger wash plants, more powerful excavators, specialized recovery equipment. Parker wasn't just mining, he was building an empire. He sought out knowledge from mining operations across the globe, from the icy expanses of the Klondike to the sweltering heat of Papua New Guinea. That global perspective gave him an edge, allowing him to see solutions his rivals couldn't, and rivals he had. Todd Hoffman, the dreamer who first brought Parker onto the Gold Rush stage, could never quite match his production numbers. Tony Beats, the king of the Klondike, with decades of experience, still found Parker breathing down his neck in total ounces. Even Rick Ness, who had learned much under Parker's wing before striking out on his own, struggled to keep pace with the numbers Parker's crew was posting. Year after year, Parker's empire grew not just in scale, but in dominance. Those numbers weren't just a reflection of gold in the jar, they were proof of Parker's formula. Dig smarter, work harder, never stop moving forward. Now, with a 10,000-ounce target on the horizon, the empire's past performance was both an inspiration and a burden. The stakes had never been higher, and the weight of those numbers, all those years of exceeding expectations, meant that anything less than a record would feel like failure. And for Parker Schnabel, failure is never an option. Season 15 was supposed to be the year Parker Schnabel cemented his place in gold mining history. 3 wash plants running side by side, each tearing through pay dirt at a punishing pace, feeding the gold room with more concentrate than ever before. On paper, it was the perfect plan. In reality, it was a relentless grind that pushed every man and woman on site to the very edge of their limits. Engines roared from dawn until well past. Welders worked under floodlights to keep equipment alive, and the steady, metallic rattle of sluice boxes became the soundtrack of a season that refused to slow down. Parker was everywhere at once. On the radio, barking updates, at the plant troubleshooting breakdowns, in the foreman's trailer, studying production charts with a stare that could cut steel. His obsession with the 10,000-ounce goal was absolute. Every lost minute was an enemy. Every ounce short of target was a personal insult. But that intensity came with a cost. People aren't machines. The crew was running on fumes, and it showed. Slower responses, sharper tempers, mistakes creeping in where there had been none before. No one embodied the strain more than Chris Doumit. In the gold room, the workload had exploded beyond anything he'd seen in more than a decade of mining. The cleanup process, already meticulous and exhausting, became a race against an endless tide of concentrate. Chris moved slower now, not because he wanted to, but because his body demanded it. His hands, once steady and sure, trembled after hours bent over sluice mats and recovery bowls. The easy smile that had carried him through countless hard days was replaced with a tight-lipped determination, the kind a man wears when he knows quitting isn't an option, but wonders how much more he can give. Around camp, Chris's exhaustion became more than just one man's struggle. It became the unspoken symbol of the season's true cost. The gold kept piling up, yes, but so did the toll on the people pulling it from the ground. Every crew member could see it. Parker's dream was being built on the edge of a knife, balanced between triumph and collapse. And if the wrong man fell, if the wrong part of the operation buckled, the whole thing could come crashing down before the frost set in. The season's dust still hung in the air, clinging to the machines, the camp, and the people who had given everything to keep Parker Schnabel's operation alive. But inside the gold room, the hum of equipment was gone. The bowls sat empty. The sluice mats, once alive with water and gold, lay still. Chris Doumit wasn't there. His absence was a void the crew could feel as soon as they walked in. For years, he had been the constant, the quiet force turning dirt into dollars, the man whose steady hands kept recovery rates among the best in the business. Now no one knew if he was coming back. For Parker, the uncertainty was a threat more dangerous than any breakdown or bad weather. Machines can be fixed, ground can be recut, but a man like Chris can't be replaced with a quick phone call. Losing him would mean more than just losing an experienced hand. It could mean losing the precision that turned pay dirt into profit. Without Chris, every cleanup would be riskier, every ounce of gold harder to hold on to. The empire Parker had built on speed, precision, and relentless forward motion could start bleeding from the inside. Crew members avoided the question in public, but the conversations still happened, whispered over coffee, muttered in the cab of an excavator. Was this just a break for Chris, or was it the end of an era? Could Parker's drive for bigger numbers, bigger goals, and bigger risks finally have pushed too far? Every man and woman on site knew that gold mining is about more than machines and dirt. It's about the people who make it happen. And if one of the best walked away, the ripples would be felt far beyond the gold room. The season wasn't over, but the weight of the unknown hung heavier than the Yukon sky before a storm. The question wasn't just whether Parker could still hit his goal, it was whether he could hold his operation together long enough to try.